The Iranian regime has entered an explosive phase, and what is happening now goes far beyond an external confrontation. The center of the crisis is inside Tehran. This Monday, April 6, 2026, President Masoud Pezeshkian appears cornered by the very structure that supports the Islamic Republic, while the Revolutionary Guard expands its control and takes a harder line in the war. The death of the Guard's intelligence chief, announced today by Iranian state media, reinforces the sense of collapse at the top ranks and of open struggle for control of the regime. What happened, simply put, was the following. The political wing linked to the president tried to make room for a negotiated solution, but ran into the fury of the military and ideological wing. Who is involved in this clash? On one side, Pezeshkian and figures more inclined to negotiation, like Mohammed. On the other, the Revolutionary Guard, which today no longer acts as an auxiliary force, but as the real center of military power, intelligence, and internal security. Reuters reported that Pezeshkian's statement promising to contain attacks against Gulf nations provoked an immediate reaction from radical factions, forcing the president to back down in a humiliating way. This also answers the question of how. The split appears in the decisions, in the tone, and in the control of the narrative. The Guard began to take part in all the major decisions of the regime, even after losing commanders in recent attacks. The structure was set up to survive under bombardment. Each commander has a line of successors, and the general orders allow continuity even when the top is hit. In other words, the president still exists, but real power lies elsewhere. That's why the perception is growing that there's a war going on internally over the direction of the regime, and not just a war against external enemies. When did this internal conflict become more visible? In the last few weeks. But it took on new significance today when Tehran rejected the proposal for a temporary ceasefire and responded that it would only accept a lasting end to the war. According to Reuters, the Iranian proposal sent through Pakistan includes demands such as an end to attacks, a safe passage protocol in Hormuz, sanctions relief, and reconstruction. Donald Trump rejected the plan, said it is not enough, and kept the deadline for the reopening of the Strait. This shows that the regime's hardliners doesn't want to give the president room to sell a weak truce as a victory. And where is the most dangerous point in all of this? In the Strait of Hormuz. It's not just about geography. It's about energy, global pressure, and strategic blackmail. Reuters reported today that Brent crude rose again and was close to $109.60 a barrel. In other words, the Iranian regime uses Hormuz as leverage because it knows that when it interferes with this route, it's not just putting pressure on Washington. It puts pressure on the global market, on governments, and spreads economic fear far beyond the Middle East. The reason for this internal division is straightforward. The Revolutionary Guard understands that negotiating now could mean losing power, money, regional influence, and control over the future of the regime. Reuters itself showed that since the beginning of the war, the Guards have taken on an even greater role in the national command structure. Here, negotiating is not seen as peace, it's seen as retreat. On the streets, the regime promotes a different image. Pezeshkian and other authorities have appeared publicly in Tehran in recent days to project strength and signal, without saying a word, that the system is still standing. But this show of normalcy says a lot about the level of pressure. When those in power need to go out into the streets to prove they are still in charge, it's because they feel the ground shaking. Reuters itself described these appearances as part of a strategy to show that the Islamic Republic has not been broken by the attacks, even with the new supreme leadership out of the public eye and negotiations stalled. In the end, there's only one piece of news. Iran is experiencing a brutal clash between the president's political survival and the confrontational logic of the Revolutionary Guard. What's at stake is not just a truce, but who really holds power, who decides the next attacks, and who determines whether the regime will try to catch its breath or drag the region even deeper into a dangerous escalation. It's the deepest division at the core of Iranian power.